Hi, it's Jenny Welch again. Here's the second instalment of the Centurion story. On Wednesday, my job paid off. I saw one of his own disciples, one named Judas Iscariot, going to the chief priests and officers of the temple guard. I moved in close enough to hear their conversation. Judas was discussing ways how he might be able to betray Jesus, how he might hand Jesus over to them, perhaps when Jesus was alone and the people were not around so as not to cause a riot. They gave him 30 silver coins. I wrote on my scroll, "Keep an eye on Judas." Thursday evening came. I heard Jesus and his disciples were eating in an upper room of a certain house, so I posted a guard. Late into the evening, I saw the one called Judas running out of the house, looking half crazed, almost demon-possessed. I followed him. He went to the chief priests and the elders. I overheard him saying, "Jesus will be in the Garden of the Gethsemane this evening praying. No one will be around except his disciples, and they will probably be sleeping. Now is the perfect time to capture him." They began working on forming a lynch mob. I used the time to run ahead, to warn him, not so much because I liked him, that I had brought wholeheartedly into his message, but because I had a duty to uphold the peace. If something happened to him now, the people, the city, might riot. But deep in my heart, I knew the latter reason was not the real reason. I ran to the garden because I did like him, because something was pulling my heart toward him. And there he was, kneeling by himself in prayer. He couldn't see me. I was behind some bushes, watching. As I moved closer, I could have sworn, but no, it must have been the lighting, but I could have sworn he was sweating blood. I was awestruck, paralysed by the sight. And then, I knew I shouldn't have had that second glass of wine, but I thought I saw an angel. And I'd heard about them, but never believed in them. But there it was, strengthening this man who was in so much pain, anguish and agony. Moving closer, I stepped onto a twig. It snapped. I looked down and cursed. Looking back up, the angel had disappeared. And now, eye to eye, Jesus was looking at me. I wanted to run out to him, to help him, to tell him what was about to happen. But I couldn't move. It seemed as if eternity had passed, as if we were staring at each other forever, as if he were looking right into my soul, knowing everything about me. The grief on his face, the sorrow and yet love, mixed into one face, and then the words within my head, "Stay where you are, don't worry, I'm in control, this is something I must do." I was mesmerised. And then I heard of voices, a mob. I snapped to, as I saw Judas approaching with a detachment of soldiers and a large crowd, including officials, carrying torches, lanterns, swords and clubs. They stayed their distance as Judas went ahead into the garden, right up to Jesus, and kissed him. And then they moved. Jesus approached them and asked, "Who is it that you want?" And they answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." "I am he," Jesus replied, and with such authority and power that the mob drew back and fell to the ground. I thought, what fools! They are playing right into his hands. Jesus was in full control of the situation. What was his game? I wondered. One of Jesus' disciples, a rash sort of man, cut off one of the men's ears. And what happened next astounded me. "Put your sword back in its place," Jesus stated, "for all who draw the sword will die by the sword." Those words pierced my heart, for I lived by the sword. And then Jesus took the ear, put it back in place, and healed him. They took Jesus to Annas, who used to be the high priest in Jerusalem. We Romans deposed him in AD 15, but the Jews still looked to him for spiritual guidance. Annas questioned Jesus, and Jesus replied, "I was always in the temple or synagogues. Ask the Jews your questions about me." At which point one of the officials struck him in the face. "Is this how you answer the high priest?" And then they took him, still bound, to Caiaphas, the high priest at the time. Caiaphas commanded Jesus, "I charge you under the oath of the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." Jesus replied, "I am." And then it got crazy. Caiaphas yelled, "Blasphemy!" and tore his clothes. They began spitting on Jesus and struck him with their fists. The soldiers guarding him, blindfolded him and slapped him, mocking, "Prophesy to us, Christ, who hit you?" And then they beat him.